good is Dan Bilzerian actually at poker?
Where did Dan get his money from?
How, you may ask, does this billionaire playboy
To have won over $50 million in 1 year of playing poker.
He's the son of convicted corporate fraudster Paul Bilzerian.
The trust fund Ponzi scheme inheriting pseudo-commando wannabe Kirkland.
There was a time when Dan Bilzerian ruled Instagram, the self-proclaimed king whose life looked like a never-ending party of yachts, models, and million-dollar toys, and enough cash on the table to make Scrooge McDuck jealous. But fast forward to now, and the same man who built his empire on excess is watching it slowly collapse. Publicly, messily, and in a way that feels almost inevitable. This isn't just another celebrity having a bad month. This is the unraveling of an entire brand. And when you dig into what's happened lately, you start to realize this downfall was a long time coming. Dan's rise to fame was as much about perception as it was reality. His feed was basically a highlight reel of billionaire fantasy life. Exotic travel, private jets, and women outnumbering men in every shot. He claimed to have built his fortune from high-risk ventures and smart investments, telling stories about his business genius that sounded like a Netflix documentary pitch. But the cracks started showing years ago. People close to him hinted that the reality was far less glamorous, that his lavish spending was often funded by loans, brand advances, or backing from family money. His father, Paul Bilzerian, had his own infamous history with SEC charges and prison time for securities fraud, and that shadow never really went away.
He's a felon, a certified scam artist. He specialized in corporate takeovers and was really good at hiding money. When he was ordered to pay all of that money back, he said, "I don't got it," so he filed for bankruptcy.
Dan brushed off the criticism, but with recent revelations and lawsuits, those old rumors have started looking a lot more like the truth. Let's talk about Ignite International Brands, the cannabis and CBD company Dan positioned as his next billion-dollar empire.
And I just felt like there was no real predominant brand. There was no real ability to, generate a multi-state or international brand. So I felt like I had a unique opportunity with my social following to cater to those audiences. And, a big part of my following was cannabis smokers.
In reality, it became one of the biggest embarrassments of his career. Ignite was a publicly traded company, which meant their financial records were available for everyone to see. And what people saw was shocking. Instead of reinvesting in the business, reports showed millions of dollars going toward Dan's personal lifestyle. Luxury travel, yachts, and even a $50,000 bed. This was shareholder money, being used to fund Instagram content and private parties. Former executives accused him of treating Ignite like his own piggy bank. And in 2020, the company posted massive losses. Shareholders were furious. Critics said the whole operation was never about building a real company. It was about keeping up the illusion that Dan was still living the life he bragged about online. When the numbers came out, it wasn't just a financial failure. It exposed the fact that Dan's billion-dollar businessman image was propped up by smoke and mirrors. In an interview, he tried to explain his losses.
I think it's one of those things where I think also people don't really understand too much about business, and they look at it like, oh my God, the company lost $50 million in a year, and it's like, well, Uber lost $5 billion in a quarter. You know what I mean? Like, some companies lose money. Most companies lose money when they start. The headlines were like, Dan Bilzerian was faking everything. And it's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, I was famous for being rich like 8 years before Ignite.
If the Ignite scandal wasn't bad enough, Dan started collecting lawsuits like they were another flex for Instagram. He was sued by Ignite's former president, Curtis Heffernan, who claimed he was wrongfully terminated for questioning Dan's misuse of company funds. The lawsuit laid out details that sounded like they were ripped from a Wolf of Wall Street parody. Massive spending on models, private jets, and 5-star vacations. There was also a separate legal battle with a former girlfriend who accused Dan of breach of contract over a modeling agreement. Add in various disputes with landlords and vendors, and it became clear. Dan wasn't just losing public trust, he was losing in court. When you're known for excess, it's easy for fans to ignore the behind-the-scenes drama. But when legal documents start proving what critics have been saying for years, that's when the image really starts to collapse. Dan always loved to talk about his business instincts, claiming he could spot opportunities others missed and turn them into massive paydays. But former partners tell a different story. Some say he walked away from deals without warning, leaving projects half-finished. Others accuse him of using collaborations mainly for PR, with no real intention of delivering on his promises. But one of Dan's more bizarre ventures was something called the Sigma Society, a private members club he hyped as the ultimate network for high-status men. For a hefty membership fee, you'd supposedly get access to elite parties, investment opportunities, and a brotherhood of like-minded alphas. But critics called it a cash grab wrapped in pseudo-masculine branding. Outside of flashy promo videos and vague promises, there's little evidence it ever delivered anything meaningful. For many, it became yet another example of Dan selling the idea of his lifestyle, rather than anything tangible. And when the hype died, the Sigma Society quietly faded into obscurity. What was once marketed as an exclusive brotherhood became just another forgotten chapter in Dan's long list of failed ventures. When these patterns start to show up again and again, it's not bad luck, it's bad habits. And when you lose credibility in the very space you claim as your foundation, it's only a matter of time before everything else starts to collapse. It's one thing to lose clout with the public, but when sponsors start backing away, that's when you know it's bad. Several brands that once partnered with Dan have quietly distanced themselves, likely wary of being associated with his mounting scandals. Even Ignite, his own company, has gone quiet about his involvement, trying to salvage what's left of their image without his name dragging them down further. Without those deals, Dan's ability to fund the extravagant lifestyle he built his brand on becomes harder to sustain. And when the lifestyle is the brand, that's a death sentence. Part of why Dan's downfall feels so sharp is because the internet has changed. The kind of over-the-top flexing that made him famous now reads as tone-deaf in a time when audiences value relatability, transparency, and authenticity. You can't just post a photo with 10 models on a yacht and expect applause anymore. People want to see the work behind the wealth, not just the wealth itself. And Dan has never been interested in showing the work. Probably because the work isn't what he's claimed it to be. Even some YouTubers are talking about Dan Bilzerian's scams.
Dan Bilzerian, once dubbed the king of Instagram, built his online image around guns, women, and money, but his real-life track record is much darker. He's been sued for tossing an adult film actress off a roof and shattering her foot, allegedly kicked a woman in the face during a nightclub brawl, and was arrested on bomb-making charges after causing an open fire in Nevada. He also suffered 2 heart attacks before the age of 28, reportedly triggered by a cocktail of drugs including cocaine, ecstasy, and Viagra taken during non-stop parties.
Dan still has followers, sure. He still has money, houses, and toys. But the difference now is that the myth of Dan Bilzerian, the untouchable self-made playboy billionaire, has been shattered. The lawsuits, the failed business ventures, the public meltdowns, they've all chipped away at the illusion until what's left is just a man desperately trying to hold on to the image he built, even as it crumbles in real time. And the thing about building your entire identity around a fantasy, once people stop believing in it, there's no way to bring it back. Dan Bilzerian's downfall isn't happening because of one bad decision. It's the result of years of unchecked ego, shady business moves, and a refusal to evolve. He spent a decade convincing the world he was living the ultimate dream. But when the receipts came in, it turned out the dream was more like a rented costume. Now, the king of Instagram is learning the hard way that reputations, like luxury brands, can lose their shine overnight. And no matter how many yachts, models, or Instagram posts you have, once the game's over, there's no bluffing your way back in.